to another live. We're on location in my kitchen today because we got a Cooking with the Kitchen Witch episode. Woo-woo! So I'm going to wait for some of you guys to come on in. I've gotten all of my ingredients ready already, and I'll show you those in a second. I also got my handy dandy cookbook with my recipe in it. But yeah, I'm excited, and I hope you guys are too. So I have one recipe that we're going to make, which is the fudge, which I posted about. But I do have a second recipe if we end up having the time to make the second recipe. So we are going to make, when I made the recipe, so it's a 3-ingredient fudge. They call it fudge. It's more like a cheesecake bar. And I have made this recipe probably a dozen times now, trying different flavors and stuff like that. So basically you end up freezing it, and that's what sets the mousse or the fudge. So I do actually have some I can show you in my freezer, so you can see what it looks like, what a finished product looks like. And then we can actually get to the making of the recipe. So this, for example, is one I made a couple of weeks ago. So you can see here it's chocolate, and then this one I put coconut in and then some pineapple on the top. I also made another one where I layered it with peanut butter. So you can kind of just see it there, but I did chocolate and peanut butter. So that one turned out really good. Everybody loved that one. But the one we're going to make today, I thought it would be kind of fun. I got some little mini M&Ms. So we're going to throw some little mini M&Ms into our fudge today. Some other things you can throw in there are the chocolate baking crumbs. So like Oreo cookie crumbs. This is just no name brand from here in Canada. And then you're also going to need some chocolate chips. And I don't add any additional sweetener. The recipe initially called saying you could add sweetener, but honestly, the chocolate chips are enough sweet on their own. And personally, being diabetic, not having to add extra sugar to things is like A-okay. So the only thing I'm going to grab is cottage cheese from my fridge, because you're going to need cottage cheese as that's the kind of main base of the recipe. So I'm going to grab that from my fridge. Actually going to grab a full container. It's Canadian Thanksgiving today, so my fridge is a little bit full. So yeah, so the recipe only calls for a cup of full-fat cottage cheese. So actually one of these containers, one of these small containers actually has 2 servings in it. So I'm just going to make 2 servings worth, or 2 batches of the recipe, just because it's just easier that way, I find. And this is just the Costco brand cottage cheese. I find it works just as well as any other cottage cheese. Stick the other one back in the fridge. There we go. All right. So, hi Moira, how are you? I've seen other guys on YouTube making this, but haven't tried it myself. Looks yummy. Yeah. So all the ingredients, I'll show you all the ingredients and then all the little things you'll need. So you need cottage cheese. So a cup of cottage cheese, 1.5 cups of chocolate chips. So these are the semi-sweet chocolate chips. And then you also need coconut oil. So this is the hard coconut oil. It helps the chocolate melt in the microwave. So you add that. You can't really taste it, honestly. And then you also can add vanilla, like a teaspoon of vanilla if you want, depending on what flavors you're using. And then, as I said, your optional fillings. So things like, as I said, M&Ms that we're going to use today, cookie crumbs. You can also add sprinkles if you want to make some fun sprinkles. I've tried it with chili chocolate, so making like a spicy version. That was good. Trying to think of some of the other flavors I've tried. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas for some flavor choices, you can definitely post those in the comments. I'm always open to new ideas. Oh no, you're good, but your internet connection isn't. That's okay. That's okay, Moira. I appreciate you popping in. All right, so the only other things you're going to need is a bowl, a microwavable bowl, because that's what we're going to melt the chocolate in. You're going to want a nice spatula. And then you're also going to need a food processor. So I got my food processor out here. It's off to the side out of view, just slightly here. When we go to use the food processor, I'll try and angle you here. Okay. There we go. You can kind of see it now, right? Gonna move my recipe book off to the side as well. You think I need a bigger kitchen? All right. Yeah, so we're making a double recipe. Just because that way I can just use an entire container of cottage cheese. So this is a 500-gram container of cottage cheese. You only need 250 for the recipe. But as I said, with baking, I'd be more concerned. This is more like cooking, so measure with your heart. So for example, I think the original recipe called for only like a cup of chocolate per cup of cottage cheese. I add a cup and a half because chocolate. So yeah, I'm just going to basically put the cottage cheese directly into the food processor. And the plan is, or what we want is, we're going to basically run the food processor until this cottage cheese is completely smooth. So it'll thicken up, actually. The cottage cheese will thicken up and become like really, really kind of mousse texture. Ooh, Rocky Road. There, that's a good idea. Yeah, because you can mix the nuts and the marshmallows and all that in afterwards. That's a good idea. I'll have to try that one, Moira. I'll write that one down. Just going to rinse my container so I can stick it in the recycling after. You want to be environmentally conscious, right? Put those things in the recycling. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is just, as I said, mix this. You can kind of see it there. And we're going to mix this, so it might get a little bit loud for 2 seconds, but we're going to mix this until it gets nice and smooth. So right now, it's very chunky. But we're going to let it go for a little bit. So I'll show you here with my finger because I'm going to be the only one eating this right now. So you can see how smooth that is comparatively to like regular cottage cheese. Right now it just tastes like whipped up cottage cheese. Mm. There we go. And you can use this too to make like a base for chip dip and stuff like that. I know my dad uses that cottage cheese a lot to make dip for his potato chips. But yeah, you just want it to be smooth. You don't want any chunks of cottage cheese in your fudge. But now that that's done, we're going to do the chocolate chip part. So, as I said, microwavable safe bowl. So you don't actually have to ever use an oven. So this is probably great to do with like kids, grandkids, because you don't have to use an oven at all. So I have my chocolate chips here. This is a Costco size bag of chocolate chips. And again, with this, I put a cup and a half in per portion. So we're making 2, so it'll actually be 3 cups total. But again, measure with your heart. It's chocolate. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3, and of course, chocolate tax. And stick this back up in the cupboard so it's out of the way. All right, so I got my chocolate chips in my bowl. We're also going to add a tablespoon, so my tablespoon here, of the coconut oil. So it's the, I don't know what you would call it, like solid version of the coconut oil. You can see it's nice and hard. And this is just going to help the chocolate melt nicer, quicker. Helps it to set. Hi, Annie Bear. Yes, please like and subscribe. Yes, yeah. But there's like liquid coconut oil, but this is the like solid shelf stable coconut oil. Alrighty. And now my hands are all oily. Good for your hair and your skin and stuff, though. All right, so that's that. That's the coconut oil. Again, gonna stick it back up in the cupboard because we're keeping ourselves organized here. So the only other thing is I tend to like to use a smaller spatula for this. So what we're gonna do, yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, thank you, sorry, Annie Bear. And Moira's, liquid, it's called, yeah, fractionated coconut oil. That's right, yeah. I knew there was a different name for it. Couldn't remember. But yeah, thank you, Annie Bear. Yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving's today, or was this weekend. It was actually so super nice. On Saturday, I was able to get together with some friends, and we had a little Thanksgiving. So that was really nice. My parents are currently in the UK, so I'm on my own at the moment for Thanksgiving, but it was nice to get together with friends and have my found family, right? So I'm going to stick this. This is the coconut oil, if you can see it before it rolls out of the way. Anyway, the coconut oil is in here and the chocolate is in here, and we're going to stick it in the microwave. I'm going to stick it in the microwave behind me, little white thing there. And I typically do about a minute, take it out, stir it, put it in for another minute, because the thing is, if you put the chocolate in all at once for like a long time, you can actually risk burning it. So I'm going to put this in for a minute at a time. If my mother was here, she'd be doing it at like 50% for whatever time. I am not that smart with my microwave, so I just got to put it in for a minute, stir it up. All right, bye, Moira. Thanks for passing by. I appreciate it. So yeah, so we're going to make the fudge. And then if we have time too, I do have another recipe. I was going to make some muffins for my work. Happy Thanksgiving, Moira. Bye. I was going to make some muffins for my work. So if we have enough time here within our hour, I might at least start making that recipe with you guys if you want. The only other thing I use for this fudge is my mom actually gave me these, but they're silicone like loaf pans. They're a little bit smaller than like our standard loaf pan. Like that's the size of my hand, so they're small. But what's nice is the silicone is once they're frozen, because you're going to have to set them in a container to freeze them, is that they just pop right out of this. If you don't have silicone little containers like this to freeze it in, the other thing you can do is get like a glass or like a metal loaf pan, and then you're just going to want to line it with saran wrap. And again, that's just so it'll pop out easier once it's frozen. So yeah, so that minute is over. So you can see the coconut oil's melted and it's starting to get all glistening and delicious in there. I will warn you, this recipe does get a little bit messy. But nothing wrong with messy. It means we're having fun. So yeah, this is probably going to need one more minute and then we'll be good. So you can see here how it's already started to melt. We're going to stick it in for one more minute just to get the rest of those chunks, because we don't want chunky chocolate, especially where we're not baking this at all. You want it nice and smooth. I'm going to get some paper towel here because, as I said, it's about to get some messy. I already got chocolate all over my fingers. But yeah, so Moira mentioned that I should try a Rocky Road version with some like with nuts and marshmallows. But if you guys have any other flavor ideas for me to try, I am open to suggestions. I've done a chocolate coconut. I've done peanut butter. I've done chili chocolate. We're doing, is it M&Ms? Because I've done the M&Ms before. And these are like the super mini M&Ms, so they're not the full-size M&Ms. That way, because when it's frozen, of course, you don't want to hurt your teeth. Oh, I tried Score. I did Score pieces, because you can buy like bags of Score pieces for cooking and baking. So I did Score, because I had that up in my cupboard. Oreo. So I do have Oreo cookie crumbs. And then, yeah, I've done sprinkles and stuff too. You can do that. Oh, strawberry. I did a strawberry flavor too. Tried that. But yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions, let me know. The only thing you have to watch with this recipe is adding additional liquid. So you wouldn't want to add too much additional liquid. So I have done a coffee flavor. So I used I'm going to try and stand in front of this light so I'm not so backlit. I did do a coffee flavor using instant coffee. It actually wasn't too bad. I would need to work on the ratio just because it ended up being a little bit grainy, but I think that was more just because I was really nervous about adding extra liquid, so I didn't add as much liquid as you would need for the coffee. But the flavor was really, really nice. Oh, there we go. I could probably do, going off the Rocky Road one, I could probably do like a s'mores one. So mix the marshmallows in afterwards and then like top it with graham cracker or something like that. That would probably be pretty good. There we go. So yeah, this is completely melted now. So I don't know how well you can see that, but it's completely melted. So now that it's completely melted, we're going to put it in with our cottage cheese in the food processor. So I'm going to kind of try and tilt you back this way so you can see the food processor. And I'm literally just going to like pour this in here. As I said, it can get messy. But of course it's chocolate, so you know. Could be worse things. Appreciate you guys all hanging out with me tonight. You know, it's a weeknight and all that. And you can be watching other things. But I appreciate you tuning in and watching me cook. Because I do love cooking. I do call myself a kitchen witch. And I mean, cooking for me too, you know, it's how I show love to my friends and family and, you know, taking the time to cook and bake. Trying to get as much of the chocolate out as we possibly can. There we go. I think I got about as much of that out as I am going to get. So you can see here, got it fairly clean. I'm going to stick that in the sink. I'll do my dishes after. Not going to bore you guys with me doing dishes. All right. So we got the cottage cheese and all blended, smooth, and then the chocolate in here. That's the chocolate with the coconut oil. So now it's going to get loud again, just because I have to use the food processor. But we're going to blend this till it's fully incorporated. So I'm going to be a little bit noisy, do a little bit of a dance for you while we let this blend. go. So I always just like running this through with the spatula, just to make sure everything's evenly incorporated, and it does look like it is. And you can see how thick this is. It's super thick. This is where I almost call it a mousse. So if you didn't freeze it, you could probably use it honestly just as like a mousse base if you're wanting to make a dessert, really quick, healthy dessert. But by freezing it, it becomes more like a cheesecake. And you do want to take it before you eat it. It is better if you take it out of the fridge or the freezer, sorry, for a little bit, just to let it soften. But otherwise, and you know, the more it is left out, the more it'll turn back to kind of the mousse consistency. That's where I said, like, they called it a fudge. It's not really a fudge. It's more a cheesecake bar, but, you know, we'll call it fudge because that's what they called it. I want to make sure I don't waste any of the stuff on my blades here. All right. So I'm going to put these into my little containers down here. So when I do ones with filling, I will tend to put a base down of the mousse and then, or the like the cottage cheese mixture, and then kind of layer it, especially with M&Ms, for example, where I'm wanting a more even distribution. With the coconut that I did, for example, I threw it into the food processor with this. So it really just depends on the filling. Like the Oreo cookies, you could technically blend in the food processor with it. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of sprinkle enough M&Ms that, you know, spread kind of evenly. There you go. And then I'm gonna add another layer here. As I said, gotta get in with your hands. We're not worried about getting dirty. Half the time it gets everywhere anyway. And again, this is where it'd be kind of fun, you know, for kids or grandkids. Let them use their fingers. And as I said, I don't add any sweetener to this at all. The only sweetener is, you know, the sugar that's in with the chocolate. And I mean the M&Ms, of course, because we added M&Ms. So that's a layer. So I'm going to do another layer of M&Ms. And these M&Ms I just got at the local bulk food store. I'm sure they sell them in the cooking aisle at a grocery store or the candy aisle even. And then, so this will be where my top layer will be. So we're going to just make sure that it kind of is even with the top of the container here. As I said, I almost find I get more control with my hands than I do with the spatula. And I did wash my hands before we started, so. Oops. Said making a mess, getting it all over the countertop. It's okay. There we go. And just wanting to make sure the edges are clean, just because we're going to be using saran wrap to cover these when they go in the freezer. And so the saran wrap needs something to stick to. So we just want to make sure that our edges are clean here. Smooth out the top just a little bit. There we go. So I do have enough in here to make another one. So we'll make a second here. And what I can do actually is show you what it looks like to do the Oreo cookie one. So we can make 2 different ones. And this is, of course, not going to be done by the end of the video as far as freezing goes. It does take about 2 hours for it to solidify. We're just going to sprinkle some M&Ms here on top just to make it look pretty. And so we know what flavor this one is. There we go, squish them down. I'm going to wash my hands here. So I'm going to get saran wrap out and just stick this one in the freezer so it doesn't sit out too long. And then we'll do an Oreo one. Just wrapping this in saran wrap. And then once it's frozen, I pop it out of the silicone mold and then fully wrap it in saran wrap. So there we go. There's one done. All right, number 2. So number 2, I think we're going to do Oreo cookie crumbs. It's my show. I can do what I want. So I'm going to put a base layer down again like we did the first time. Just so we have that at the bottom of the container. And it seems to, like through experimentation, it seems I can do a batch, like a two batch recipe in my food processor. I can't do 3; it gets too full, and the mixture gets way too thick for the food processor. But you can safely do a double batch, which is what I did today. I believe you can also use if you don't have a food processor, you feel like you could probably also use a blender. As long as you can kind of get the cottage cheese smooth, that's kind of the goal. All right, so get this closer to the camera so you can see. So I'm just going to take my cookie crumbs here. As I said, see, dirty. Oh, you can just sprinkle the Oreo cookie crumbs. Just want to make sure I don't have any holes anywhere. There we go. Shake it around a little bit. And then we're going to do our second layer. So you can see how thick this is. Like it's almost like icing. Is that like how thick it is? So squish that down. As I said, I, for whatever reason, just find it so much easier to use my fingers on the spatula. Especially where it's so thick and sticky. I just find it easier to control everything this way. Scraping off a little bit of the excess because I want to be able to do at least one more layer of Oreo before I put the top on. So I'm going to be a little bit skimpy with my layer here. go. Do one another layer of the cookies. Go. And we'll do our topping layer here now. So at this point, I'm just going to scoop the rest of the filling out of this food processor. And then we'll worry about spreading it out. And I do find as far as cleanup goes, using hot water is best. Seems to help the chocolate kind of re-liquefy and just makes cleanup that much easier. Oh, it's exciting. I'll have to show you guys at some point. But I actually got a couple new decks, a couple new Oracle decks. I went to Indigo, which is like Canada's version of Barnes & Noble's or Borders or bookstore. And I was able to get a Yoga Mudra Oracle. So I'll be showing you guys that at some point. Maybe even see if I can get Jen maybe to come on, or even Jacqueline to come on and talk about what mudras are. So I think that would be cool. I think Annie Bear actually mentioned that was a topic she was interested in. So yeah, we'll definitely probably have that. And then I have a Egyptian alchemy oracle that I found. I don't know. It's not like super Egyptian themed, but I liked some of the cards and some of the meanings of the cards. So that's why I got that one. So yeah, can never have too many decks, right? Purchase responsibly. Hey, I got these ones on clearance, so didn't even pay full price. Right. So that's the food processor, basically empty at this point. So you see, empty. And more dishes for me later. But we're going to, as I said, you can use a spatula if you really are worried about getting your hands dirty. But otherwise, just get in there with your fingers. Because it is, as you can see, very, very sticky. It is sticky. We just want to make sure we get our top fully covered here, which it is. Cleaning up our edges as we go, just so that the saran wrap is something to stick to. There we go. The other thing you can do too is if you want to clean up your edges, you can use just a piece of paper towel. Just wipe it around the edges. That'll just clean them up a little bit. Right. So you can see here, I'll show you. Hello again. So you can see there is a tiny little piece here of the cottage cheese that didn't get blended. I'm not going to worry about it, honestly. It's cheese. But it can happen, for sure. Going to cover this one up as well. So we didn't end up using the third one. That's fine. And I'm just going to top this with a little bit more of the cookie crumb, just so I know what type of cheesecake bar this one is. There we go. All right. And then again, covering it with saran wrap. Minimum of 2 hours in the freezer. I usually just freeze them overnight. That way they're nice and solid. But there, that's the fudge recipe, guys. That easy. So other than having to wait for it to freeze, it literally took us, what, half an hour from the start of the video? And some of that was just me talking. I really am excited, though, guys, for some of the shows coming up. The next video is at the end of the month. So let me look at what date that is. So it's in 2 weeks. So on the 27th, we're going to be doing dice casting, or going through dice casting. So it was a method Lisa Pappas and a friend of hers kind of published this dice casting manual. So I'm going to go through it with you guys, kind of show you what it is. You can go and get your own copy even, and just using dice as divination, which I think is kind of interesting. And then the next show after that, we have Diane G coming on, and I'm so excited about Diane G coming on. We're going to talk about the Akashic Records, which, again, I'm so curious about, so I'm really excited to talk to her. So it'll be really, really cool, I think, if you guys can come and hang out with us. And then, who else is coming on? Oh, I have my friend Vanessa that's going to be coming on in December. So yeah, got lots of stuff coming up. So since that fudge recipe took us no time at all, I was going to make, as I said, I was telling people at the beginning of the show, I was going to make some muffins for my work. So if you guys are cool with helping me make some muffins, we can hang out for a little bit longer here. So I took screenshots of the recipe. It's on my iPad. So let's see here. I already got my muffin pans out, and I already got my butter out because I needed it to be at room temperature. All right, so preheat the oven and prepare the muffin pan. So 375. 375. There we go. It's preheating our oven. And move it right towards the top. All right, so I have my muffin tins here. It does say to use muffin liners. I know I had some at some point. I have no clue if I still do. Do I still have muffin liners? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to just use some of my spray to prep these. So this is just like a cooking oil spray. Hi, Bora Bora. We're just doing some baking today. So I just made some fudge, and now we're going to make some muffins. We're making, I think they're like basically like coffee cake muffins. So my parents went away on a trip and gave me a bunch of their groceries, and so I'm trying to use some of the groceries up to make room in my fridge. And so I thought, why not make muffins, and I can bring them in to work with me tomorrow. Great. So let's see here. Make the batter. Combine the softened butter with 3/4 of the cup of sugar. All right, perfect. So how are we going to do this? Because my mixing bowl is all the way over there. I think I'm going to bring it over here so I can hang out with all of you. So I'm going to unplug it and bring it on over. Trying not to knock everything else over in the meantime. There we go. Gotta love you a KitchenAid. I do find a KitchenAid is really helpful. You're not having to hand mix it all. I got this for Christmas years ago at this point. Oh, thanks, Bora Bora. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. All right. Making noise. Alrighty. We're making some muffins. All right. So it says, okay, combine the softened butter with 3/4 cup of sugar. And then I need the espresso powder. Espresso. Which is over here. So I'm using like decaf, like instant coffee. So okay, I need to. How much butter was it? It was 3/4 cup of butter. Okay. So I got my butter. So I need to do the attachment here first. Go. So we need 3/4 cup of butter. So I need one of these sticks and then a half of the other stick. So if you guys don't bake very often, each of these sticks, you can buy the butter actually like this in sticks, is a half a cup. So I know easily, if I need 3/4 cup, I need 1 1/2. So we're gonna put 1 in here. There's 1. Make sure we get all of the butter off the wrapper. Go. Or what do you guys think? So this is a muffin recipe using the instant coffee or instant espresso powder. But I'm wondering, I have like a chai tea latte mix. I'm wondering if I could make like chai muffins. What do you guys think? I'm gonna think about this for 2 seconds because I prefer chai over coffee. So let's see. I can experiment here a little bit because I think this has everything in it. And it's a powder, just like the... Oh, it was yummy, Bora Bora. Yeah, Yeah, let's do a chai tea one. I'm feeling the chai. I'm willing to experiment with the chai, I think. Let's try this out. We're going to do some experimenting here, guys. You scrolled back to the beginning. Yeah. I appreciate that. So yeah, I think I'm going to use this chai tea latte mix and make like chai muffins. All right, so I need the other half of this butter before I forget. Distraction noodle. All right, I need half. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's half. Ooh, so melty. So melty. Blech. Well, I mean, at least I know my butter's at room temperature, right? All right. And then I'm going to try and somehow wrap this back up and stick it back in the fridge without making a huge mess. But, you know, if you're not being messy, you're not cooking. All right. Sit there until it solidifies, and then I can fight with it later. All right. All right, we got the butter, and then it said to add the sugar. See, that's the only thing is that with the espresso, it would be calling for extra sugar. This already has sugar in it. So what do we want to do here? I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, but not a lot, just because the powder already has sugar in it. So it's calling for 3/4 of a cup to go with the espresso. So I'm going to just maybe do 1/4 of a cup. Where this mix already has sugar in it. And plus I don't necessarily like a sweet muffin anyway. Some big fudge, yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm diabetic and I make that fudge and it actually doesn't spike my blood sugar at all because, as I said, the only sugar in it is that is in the chocolate chips. So it's actually not too shabby. I'm actually just probably going to add the rest of this container. In all honesty, we're at the experimentation stage here, guys. Doing the whole listening to my intuition in regards to my baking. I don't know if that's necessarily the best route to go, but you know. I'm also just filling the food processor in the sink just so it doesn't get too grungy. Don't want it to get all solid and impossible to clean. There we go. All right. So we've done that, and salt. What do I need for salt? Salt, I need 3/4 of a teaspoon. All right. So this is my basket of measuring spoons. And I need my salt. And it said 3/4 of a teaspoon. There is my teaspoon. That's 1 teaspoon. It'd be nice if I could find a 1/4 teaspoon. Then I could just do 3 of those. There we go. 1/4 teaspoon. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. So the reason I'm making this recipe is because I had some half and half, so 10% cream, and was looking for a recipe, and this recipe uses half and half. So, right. So mix until smooth okay. And then we're going to get our eggs out too, because we need eggs, but we're going to whisk this all together first. And it says to mix this until it's smooth. I'm going to get another spatula. I'm going to clean off this and just send it around one more time. Just clean off. You just want to make sure it's thoroughly mixed because pieces and stuff can get stuck on the mixing implement and all along the sides of the bowl. So I just always like making sure that I get everything down off the sides. So I ensure that everything mixes in properly. There we go. Upside is we'll be able to taste the batter and actually know how this is going to taste before we stick it in the oven. All right. I'm going to mix that through one more time here. I think that's nice and smooth. All right. And the next thing we're going to do is it wants us to do our eggs. So we're going to do eggs, which are in the fridge. So give me 1 second here. I'll go grab those. And a piece of the dough goes flying. That's okay. That's all right. All right, so it says mix, okay, in a small dish, whisk the whole egg and egg yolk, and then add it to the batter and the half and half and vanilla. All right. Well, we'll definitely add the extra vanilla. And I do have white vanilla. So you can have dark vanilla, which is a typical, or this clear vanilla. I'm going to use the clear just because then it doesn't affect the color as much. So if that's a concern for you when you're making like icing and stuff, the white vanilla is really great for like vanilla icing because then you don't have to worry about the color. But I'm going to mix my eggs here. I'm just going to grab a bowl. So I need 1 large egg and then an additional egg yolk. So this will actually be good. So I can actually show you guys, if you've never split eggs before, I can show you the technique on how to split eggs. So we're going to do 1 whole egg. Oh, come on. Thank you. It was fighting me. It's okay. All right. Get my garbage can open here. So I'm going to lean it down just so you guys can see. This is my bowl with my eggs. So I needed 1 whole egg, and then I need just a large egg yolk. So I want the yolk and not the white. So what I'm going to do is get a cup here. I'm trying to do this so you can actually see it. So I'm going to crack my egg, and then I'm going to only want the yolk in here. So we're going to cut it so that it's in half, as much as in half as you can possibly manage. There we go. And then what the technique is slowly you're going to pass the yolk back and forth between the 2 halves of the egg, leaving the white behind, which is what we don't want. So I'd say that's pretty good. Get the last little bits here. But you don't want that. We don't want that white if we can help it. There we go. And then we just have our yolk left. Ta-da! And then you can either, if you're doing other things with the white, you can then, save the whites if you want. But I just threw it in the garbage because I don't have any other use for it tonight. All right. So it said take our egg and then add, whisk it. I'm just going to use a fork to whisk it. You guys can come back up here and see my face while I whisk. I'm going to stick this back in the fridge too. I keep our eggs in the fridge. Don't need to get food poisoning. There we go. And then how much half and half did it call for? So 1.25 cups. I think I have 1.5 cups. I'm honestly probably just going to add the full amount of what I have. I'm not overly concerned. Just because, as I said, we're at this point experimenting just a little bit. I'm just going to add the egg into our batter. Go. And then our half and half. Alrighty. And then it said the vanilla, I think was the other part. Yeah. And how much vanilla do we need? A tablespoon of vanilla extract. We have a second tablespoon. That's a 1.5 teaspoon. I would even take like half a tablespoon. Seems like a lot to me though. I'm gonna just add a teaspoon of vanilla because I don't think that tablespoon is a right measurement. Tablespoon to me seems like a lot. This is where intuition again comes into the baking part. That just comes with time and practice, just like with anything, you know, card readings, things like that. All just takes time and practice and repetition. All right. All right, so we did our vanilla, our half and half, and our egg, and then we're gonna mix it again. All right. Give this an opportunity for the stuff to dissolve. I'm gonna just scrape down my sides again here. And the spatula. And while that's mixing, I'm going to grab our flour, our baking powder, flour, and baking powder. All right. 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Fight with the spatula one more time here, just wanting to make sure it's clean. Or as clean as I can get it anyway with the spatula. Just because we want as much of this stuff to be incorporated in as possible. Kind of like the fudge, we don't want any extra little pieces hanging out. We want it to be in our batter. Come on. Thank you. All right. So we're going to do our flour here. So I need 2.5 cups. This is a 1/2 cup measuring cup. So we're going to need 5 of these. This is us doing our math now. There's 1. 2. 3. 4. And There we go. That's our flour. And I keep the extra flour just in case we do need to add a little bit if it looks too wet. And then we need a tablespoon of baking powder. This is going to be our rising agent. This is a half a tablespoon, so we'll just do 2 of these. 1 and 2. No. All right. That goes back up in the cupboard because we're keeping ourselves neat and tidy here. All right. And I will, towards the end here, get my fingers in here if I have to. But for now, we're going to use the spatula. All right. Start this off slowly so we don't end up with a giant puff of flour everywhere. But again, if we're not making a mess, we're not cooking. This is coming together nicely, actually. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but it looks really, really nice batter, actually. I think that worked really nicely. I'm going to just get this extra flour off the side. Make sure that it's incorporated into the batter. Because we want everything to be mixed. We don't want extra flour hanging out, just because that's not going to taste very good. Again, scraping off our spatula. Make sure all the stuff that gets stuck in these little crevices gets into the dough. All right. One more go around. But all in all, I am very impressed with this recipe. Seems like a nice dough. Oh yeah. You can taste the chai, so that turned out really nice. All right. So once we have everything done, we're going to fill the muffin tins. All right. And our oven is up to temperature, so that's good. I'm going to move that to the side. I'm going to put this in the sink. I'm going to get a scoop of some sort here to scoop these into the muffin tins. So I did spray them. I didn't have muffin liners with me, so I just sprayed the muffin tin for those that weren't here when we prepped these. And then I'm going to start scooping all this. This is where I get my fingers in here again. This is where I get my fingers in. Just getting all this off the spatula. As you can tell, I'm very hands-on with my baking. I like making sure that everything is good and in. One of the things I might do is I do have apple cider in my fridge. So when these come out of the oven, I may just slightly just brush the tops with the apple cider. Because then it'll be like apple cider and chai. And I'm hoping the apple cider may be why the muffins are still hot. We'll kind of glaze them a little bit. That's what my brain is saying anyway. So I'm going to listen to it. because it's not led me wrong, at least as far as my cooking. All right. I think that's about as clean as we're going to get that. Appreciate you hanging out with me while I'm baking here today, guys. I know it's a little bit over our normal hour-long segment, but I just didn't think a half hour, live was enough. So we're going extra long instead of extra short. So I said to fill these about 3/4 of the way full. So that's what I'm going to do. Because these are going to rise up a little bit. Because we did add that baking powder. So it needs to be a little more full. It says it will make 18. So I have what, 12 here? So we'll see how far this dough goes. I may make the full 24. Just put a little bit less in each cup, which is fine. And it says to bake them for about 30 minutes. So what I'll probably do is put them in for 20 and check on them, just where we played around with the recipe just a little bit. Just to be safe, we don't want to overcook. We can always cook them for a little bit longer. I won't necessarily make you hang around for 25 minutes, though, to wait for these to bake. I'll post a picture, actually, if you guys want. And on the page. On the posting page. I'll let you guys know how they turned out. Here, dip you down so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just filling these muffin tins. So yeah, it said 3/4 full. So I'm just trying to kind of eyeball what 3/4 looks like. It's not going to be perfect. Well, that looks about right, I'd say. What I'll do too is I'll fill both and then see how much I have left over and kind of, redistribute as needed. So I'm going to stick this off to the side for 2 seconds. Didn't end up needing the other flour, so that's good. Excited about that. That's always nice. There we go. I think we're probably going to be able to get up close to 24 here. I think we're going to get pretty darn close. So I think we're going to get 21 out of this. Don't think we'll get the full 24 looking at this the way it is right now, but we got 3 more than the recipe said. So that's not too bad. So one tip or technique, if I had only done the 18, is when you're filling a muffin tin, you would actually do the full 12 there and then the 6 middle ones instead of doing the ones on the outside. And that's just because you get a more even bake that way. I'm just kind of redistributing some of the dough here to get these more even. There. I think that's not too bad. Looks pretty good from the ones over in the other container too. So what I will do is just, again, much like the fudge, we're just going to clean up the edges because all this will burn otherwise. And cleaning up as we go here. So you're just using paper towel, just wiping up the little messes I made here on the edges. Doesn't have to be 100%, but just makes cleanup at the other end a lot easier. There we go. So these lovely things are going to go in the oven. So I'm sticking them in for, I said 30 minutes. As I said, I'm going to put them in for 20 and then test them. And the best way to test them is using a skewer or a knife and sticking them in. And if it comes out clean, then we know it's fully cooked. So yeah, I'm going to stick them in the oven here. And set our timer. The other thing I'm probably going to do too is at 20 minutes, if they're not fully cooked, would be to rotate them. So the ones that are at the back, I'll move to the front. Just because I don't have a convection oven, it just means that it'll just bake that a little bit more consistently across all of them. But thank you for hanging out with me, guys. I am going to, as I said, not make you wait around for the 20 minutes to see if the muffins are done. But if you're just tuning in now, I have been on for just over an hour. We did make some fudge at the beginning of the show if you want to scroll back. Oh, hi, Kat. So yeah, I was actually just about to finish up here, but if you want to go back and watch at the beginning of the live, we did make fudge, so you can watch that if you like. The next show is in 2 weeks, where we're going to do some dice casting. And then we are going to also have Diane G coming on in November, which I am super excited about. We're going to talk about the Akashic. And then I also have my friend Vanessa, who does some Peruvian shamanism. She's going to be on in December. So yeah, I hope you guys can come and hang out with me again soon. And I hope you guys have a great night, a great rest of your week. And if you're in Canada, happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you again next time. And I will post pictures of the muffins. So keep your eyes peeled on the community page. I will be posting pictures. Talk to you guys later.